All right. David Griscom,
Yeah, man.
we're in a Corona situation, so we can't have Richard Wolff overview and course correct your work. I guess that's an upside of being in a pandemic, huh?
I guess so. I think Wolf's on my side.
I
Yeah.
think Wolff is very political. It's time for the gem. Let's do it.
Um, yeah. So I want to start on we're actually going to loop back to sort of the fight and what we were just talking about with Chris Smalls, but I want to sort of start at the ridiculous. Um, And I wanted to talk about sort of how this crisis has been affecting, I don't know, I guess I'll call it the enthusiastic side of the economy. Companies like WeWork, all of these companies that had no path to profitability, they were just pumped up by just very enthusiastic investors for a long time. And SoftBank, who is one of the major players in this world, has actually just been sued by WeWork. Because remember when all this stuff went on with WeWork and when they were going public and their CEO turned out to just be a complete lunatic, and their stock just dropped and everyone sort of backed away. SoftBank came in and saved the company with this massive bailout. Well, now that SoftBank is being hit with this crisis, SoftBank is now backing out of supporting WeWork to the tune of $3 billion. Let's also remember too that SoftBank is very, very involved in a lot of these kind of Silicon Valley tech companies. A lot of these companies that have really no path to profitability and just has continued to pump money into them. We'll come back to why that's a problem in a second. And also, let's not forget too that SoftBank is very much involved with Saudi Arabia, specifically with their Vision Fund. So we've seen over the past 2 days the Dow go up and down. There was a very excited moment on Monday where a lot of folks were thinking that the crisis is finally over. Well, those gains have already been erased today. Nobody knows what's going on. The least of which the least knowledgeable people in our society are definitely going to be people who are buying and selling stocks today. Now, I wanted to hit this because we have been talking about, or I've been talking about during these gems for the past 2 years, how much of the economy is pumped up by cheap money and just enthusiastic investment that's completely divorced from production. And what Richard Wolff was talking about during the interview earlier is exactly right. They're realizing that, you know what? We can have all the money that we want. We can have all the ownership of all these systems as we want. If the labor isn't there, then we don't own anything. Right. And you're starting to see all of those people who have been able to float on unprofitable kind of just like almost, honestly, just schemes. They're starting to get worried. Okay, well, how am I going to get my money? So you've seen this contraction in the market. And it's important that the United States government has fixated so much on going to big business first and bailing out big business first, because this is going to be the way that we restructure our economy going forward. Are we going to live in a society? It's hard to imagine, but could we live in a society where there's even more concentration of wealth with these massive corporations? It could be very likely. The small business bailout that this last package put forward has been an unmitigated disaster. In the first iteration of it, basically, we went through banks instead of the government actually going directly to small business. Because
Did I not say that? I'm sorry.
yeah.
But I mean, anybody could have called it like, the
Yeah.
small business fund. It goes through city. Sure.
And I mean, like, let's give them a little bit of just like um, for our own exploration. Let's just take them at their word. The reason they said that they did that is because there's no government apparatus to do it. Well, why is that? Because for the past few decades, we have completely demolished and destroyed any kind of government programs that are just focused on giving development and aid to average people, right? There are no institutions meant to do that because they've been destroyed systematically over decades of neoliberalism. So when this first started, you had the only people who were getting, these are small businesses, and they're saying small business is any business with less than 500 employees. So it's quite a large scope, right?
Yeah.
But the people who ate first there, as we talked about last week, were people who already had significant financial relationships with those banks. So the small businesses who were basically the elites of the small businesses, they came and they were able to get their loans first. Now they're trying and they're scrambling to try to get some kind of a solution to this problem. I know the Federal Reserve is trying to jump in. I just think it's very important that we realize that every day that we do not get this aid to these small businesses, businesses get shuttered down forever. Every day that we do not get aid to these small businesses, people who need funds right now, today, yesterday, do not get to eat. Even this kind of stimulus that's supposed to be going to everyday Americans, it seems like that's going to take forever to get to most people, right? And we got to realize that we're seeing so clearly the inequality in our system. The Financial Times put out a survey that they conducted today that found 73%, nearly, which is around 3/4 of Americans, say that the pandemic has already reduced their families' incomes. And this is where it gets really worrying. Nearly half of those people saying they would be without any income at all if they were unable to work because of illness. This is the reality that we're facing. This is almost the majority population of the United States of America that is being, one, untouched by the aid that's coming from the federal government, and two, is in such a precarious position. Again, something that's been created by the complete devastation of work, that everyone is working in these kind of informal jobs, part-time jobs, informal jobs, that we don't have any kind of institutions to reach people. Let's not even mention all the undocumented workers, precarious workers, and people working in the informal economy who are certainly being left behind right now. And so here we are. We're in this moment right now, and I think that we should see what the crisis is and also see where there's opportunity. The Financial Times editorial board put out an op-ed earlier last week that said the virus lays bare the frailty of the social contract. Right? And it's a very interesting essay to read. I just want to read a quick couple lines from it because you'd almost think it was coming from a more radical left-wing publication. Much as the struggle to contain the pandemic has exposed the unpreparedness of health systems, so the brittleness of many countries' economies has been exposed. Governments will have to accept a more active role in the economy. They must see public services as investments rather than liabilities and look for ways to make labor markets less insecure. Redistribution will, again, be on the agenda. We are seeing capital on the ropes. It is recognizing that it can rig the system to its own benefit as much as it wants. But at the end of the day, without having the labor power, without having the access to the workforces that they are reliant on, having all the money, having all of the access to credit doesn't matter. So they're trying to find ways to lobby the government to come in and fix this problem, right? And we should welcome that. We want the government to come in. We want these social programs to come in and help people. But we need to realize that there are people who are now coming in who want to create a situation where people are basically held afloat for the next couple of months. And then after all of this devastation, everything becomes cheap. And they can actually gobble up more and more and more. Who's going to be the winners and losers of this situation are going to be people who have access to credit. And we need to be making sure that money is going to working class people as much as possible. And also utilizing our incredible leverage in this moment. We are in a situation where we could see a massive reshuffling of power in our society. And the people on the top of the society are already 2-3 steps ahead of us. And we need to be moving as quickly as possible and as being bold as possible because they are already prepared to make concessions. We're just not asking for it loudly enough yet. And we need to be supporting people who are on the ground in those fights because we have all the power and all the leverage right now to really break a significant stranglehold over our lives by these people on the top have held for decades on decades now.
Absolutely.
You just watched a Michael Brooks show video. Subscribe to get them all. Why wouldn't you? Don't be foolish. Click subscribe below and become a patron as well. Patreon.com/TMBS. Thanks, everybody.